Hello. So if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you've been researching knee pain. So I've been facing knee pain for about 25 years. Ultimately, I gave up running, but I think I found the solution. So to give you a little background, every time I've gone running since I've been in my 20s, I get patellar tendonitis pretty bad after. I've tried expensive New Balance shoes, I got expensive knee straps, now I'm running on Hoka's. Ultimately, I went to the doctor, got x-rays, thinking that there was bone on bone, no cartilage, just the shape of my bones weren't good inside my knees. Strangely enough, the doctor said my knees were fine, but because of the pain and the inflammation, I just decided to stop. But last week, I was on the phone with a friend of mine who asked me how I run. He explained more deeply. Do I land on my forefoot, midfoot, or rear foot, or do I run on my heels? And I've never really heard this terminology before. So when I run, I typically take a longer stride. I try to run gently, but I land on my heel, roll smoothly, and then launch off the forefoot into my next stride. To me, that made a lot of sense. So where this all headed was my friend, who's in his 50s, I'm 47 by the way, said he was a forefoot runner and had heard that that was better for your knees in general. So I did a little research on the internet, researched mid, fore, rear, or heel running, was recommended the book Born to Run, in a nutshell, I got pretty excited about trying this new technique. Last week, I went for a 5-mile run and really focused on running on my forefoot. What I found was that I had to keep my core tight, and it really exercised my calves more than I'm used to. Halfway through the run, I started to get tired and I found myself trying to go back to my heels. And what I discovered was when I started landing on my rear foot, it actually was allowing my frame to absorb a lot of the impact, and it allowed me to relax my calves as well as relax my core. So I think what I'm learning is that my frame has been absorbing the impact of my steps, not so much using the muscles. After the run, I did notice that my calves were extremely sore, but I called a good friend of mine who's a pretty competitive runner, but also a physical therapist. We went for a 6-mile run yesterday. Got a little bit of coaching. He runs more mid forefoot, so not landing flat, maybe a little bit forward, but not as aggressively on his forefoot as I was. In a nutshell, probably 11 miles of running in the last 2 days. My core and my calves are sore. However, my knees feel absolutely great. After 11 miles of running, typically I'd be in so much pain, I would be sleeping with my legs elevated. I would be doing all the RICE techniques: rest, ice, elevation, compression. But my knees feel great. I am going to take a day off, but I'm really excited to keep this going and see if this really gets me back on the horse for running. I don't know if this is going to work for everybody, but I was excited enough where I really wanted to share this. So if you're having knee pain, do the research, look into your stride, forefoot, midfoot running style versus running on your heels like I was. Hope this works for some of you out there. If you're having trouble running, don't give up, look for a solution, and good luck to everybody. Here's that diagram again, and if anybody has some good advice to add, please post it in the comments section. Thanks.